Welcome to another episode of the OLTORF Report. I am Brian Cook, and you're listening to the second demo of the OLTORF Report presented by Luck Forever. What is Luck Forever? That is the name of my Instagram page and YouTube channel, and the OLTORF Report is a show on the YouTube channel, and right now there's two shows. There's this one, the OLTORF Report, which is a kind of current events, news, comedy hybrid thing. And then we're going to have, I can't remember that. Of course, when we're recording, I can't remember the name. But there's going to be the interview show is going to be the second one. You know, this isn't the name, but it's something like the sit down, or we're going to do something better than that. But anyway, it's just those two. And while we're getting the technical kinks worked out, and the first demo went great. Thank you for listening. We're going to keep doing these shorter couple-minute demo episodes until we're 100% ready to go with the technology, and then we're going back to the old Big Sound format, but now over here on the Luck Forever channel and the OLTORF Report, which on the second demo today, we're going to talk about the origin of these names, because I always operated under the theory of I'm coming up on 4 years in stand-up comedy. I started June 20th, 2022. It was after the COVID lockdowns ended. I wandered down to the creek, and the rest is history. That's the creek in the cave on 7th Street here in downtown Austin. And I never wanted, once I got into a merch situation, which I'm kind of dipping my toe into these days, but back then there was no need to, but I was thinking ahead that, I'd feel like such a goober and an asshole if it was some cornball picture of me on a shirt and it just said Brian Cook. I always operated more of how a band would operate, and there's so many bands over the years that their music sucks, but their shirt rules, and people buy the shirt just to have the shirt. And that's where I was like, okay, we need to come up with a name for all this, and a pretty catchy name. And so I came up with Luck Forever, and spelled with a 4, kind of like the old nu metal bands from the 90s. Old nu metal. But where did that name come from? That came from a game room, wink wink, quote unquote, a game room on East 7th Street in the kind of shithole part of Austin. That this thing was the Wild West for a long time, and it was finally until the third murder in there that the city stepped in and shut it down. But it was maybe this thing's 2.5 miles away from 6th Street and right near the Capitol building and all the stuff when you think of Austin, all the buildings you think of, it's not far away from those. And this place was just hell on earth. People openly smoking speed in there, prostitution, illegal gambling, illegal everything. And it was like that forever. And one day I took a picture of their little logo thing painted on the side of the building, and I adopted their name because I don't think they have any lawyers for copyright protection or any of that. And I ran with it, turned it into something positive, victory for the community. And the fate of that building, like I said, after the third murder, the city stepped in and shut them down. And I don't know if it's the same owners, different owners, no owners. It's community owned like Mondami in New York. Who fucking knows? But it's back open, but it's different. They painted over all the cool looking graffiti stuff is gone. It's just a white building now, white front, and in red letters up in the corner of the building on the second floor, it says Phoenix Game Room open 24/7. And that's the only markings on an otherwise white wall and building. And so they play it down these days. And to be fair to them, they're staying out of the news. So it is. I like that contrast of booming, economically mobile Austin with underground criminal, immoral Austin right next door to each other. That's the origin of my humor. I took the name, and now it's the name of the channel. So there's that. I'm looking at my notes real quick. Not very well. So we got the origin of the name, or the origin of the channel name. What about the show name? So the OLTORF Report. That name is a parody of the Drudge Report. That it was the biggest aggregating news website all through the 90s, all through the 2000s, pretty much up until Trump ran for president. And the conspiracy theory is Matt Drudge sold his website to the Illuminati for hundreds of millions of dollars, and now, cheeseheads run it, and he's long gone on some desert island somewhere, probably, who knows. But it's the tip of the hat to the old days of the Drudge Report. And like I said, he would just post the headlines and gather the news articles from all the different places all over the world. And so if you scale up, you're going macro. I guess we're going micro in this case. We're microdosing here on the Drudge Report, on the OLTORF Report. But if we're taking that philosophy and going down with it, then the OLTORF Report is quick hits about here in Austin, and not just the Austin comedy scene. It's always been my little snappy banner to everyone, is like, I'm not a comedian who lives in Austin. I'm an Austinite who does comedy. And so the city kind of comes first in this equation, and everything's going to have a local lens to it, even if it's a national story or a national issue or a world issue or an international issue or an intergalactic issue. That I look at things through, okay, how does it affect us here? What is the pros and cons for Central Texas here? And I don't see any need to change that. And it's going to be closer to how Big Sound started, of 30 minutes, quote unquote, wink wink, asterisk, maybe. We're aiming for 30. Reining it in, staying focused. So that's where the OLTORF Report, presented by Luck Forever. Now hopefully these names make a little bit more sense. And in closing here on the second demo, and thank you for listening again, because where are we at? 7 minutes. I meant to tighten that up again. But probably for the rest of the demo, little short episodes coming out here, we'll focus on the South by Southwest preview, so that's probably going to take us through next week. And then during South by, the launch of the actual real podcast. So that's going to take us through the end of this month and into the beginning of the next month. Thank you very much for listening to the OLTORF Report, presented by Luck Forever. We'll see you later.